BestPass provides back office automation software and tow management solutions for commercial fleets of all sizes. They save fleets time and money by consolidating payments and providing insight to better manage costs per vehicle. Founded in 2001 by truckers for truckers, BestPass is a trusted partner on the road and in the back office. And to learn more, call 888-410-9696 or visit www.bestpass.com. Welcome to Taking the Higher Road, a DriverReach and FreightWaves production. I'm your host, Jeremy Reymer, founder and CEO of DriverReach, a modern recruiting and compliance management solution. On this show, I interview industry experts and thought leaders who bring their insights to the driver lifecycle as we discuss the industry's greatest challenges, driver recruiting, retention, and compliance. I appreciate all the positive feedback on the show. Please remember to rate and review Taking the Higher Road, whatever platform you use to listen. This week, I'm honored to have on the show a great friend and innovative leader, Justin Clarke, founder and CEO of F-Staff, an on-demand truck driver staffing company. Justin leads his company and the staffing industry in on-demand technology and marketplace staffing. He continues to mold himself as a trusted leader in the staffing industry and remains passionate about helping people find quality and meaningful work. So glad to have you on the show, Justin. Welcome.
That's too much. Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, it's an honor to have you on finally, and I'm excited to get into talking about F-Staff, its journey, starting from, 2001 as contracted driver services and, becoming the leading on-demand staffing company. And I'm anxious to hear, how you've adapted over the years and leveraged technology to better, enable the process of utilizing safe, qualified on-demand drivers. Plus, I want to make sure that we have time for a question from a listener during our deeper dive segment. Does all that work for you?
Absolutely, for sure. I'm excited.
Awesome. So before we get there, though, I am curious, as is the custom, if there are any books that you might recommend for the audience, anything recent that you've read or something that may have been impactful to you.
Oh, definitely. I always tell my kids to be an active learner, and it's not about, knowledge is power anymore as much as it is applied knowledge is power. And a couple of books I'm reading right now are really going to help me apply reducing or eliminating my limiting mindset. So reading a book right now, actually have it right next to me here. It's called The Gap and the Gain by Dan Sullivan. Really good book on really focusing on the gain. I think it's really easy for us all to focus on the gaps and the things that we're lacking. And it's a great book to really kind of hold on to for sure. It's helping me stretch my mind and focus on what's good and not what's bad. And I'm also just rereading an old book called The Four Agreements. It's a really short read, and it just kind of helps you keep steady again on reducing that limiting mindset and staying true to your word and just having some simple agreements in life. So yeah, definitely always reading, and I think everybody should be reading.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I always love when I get to, interview somebody and they not only have one or more books that they want to share, but this is what they do, and they're active readers and learners. And as you said, applied knowledge is power. I love that because knowledge by itself is just knowledge. It's the application of what you've learned, which is what's critical. I don't know if you're on Goodreads or not, but it's a great app that helps track books that you're reading, books that you want to read, and that sort of thing. I've mentioned it a few times on the show only because I'm on there and I always keep track of everything I'm reading, and you can connect with other people who are like-minded and share, different book suggestions and stuff. So good reading or Goodreads. That's a
good idea.
They should be sponsors of this show because of all the times I bring them up. But something that you might want to look into. Let's talk about your roots. How did you first get involved in the trucking industry? Where did you come from?
So my first job in trucking was actually in a distribution company. I was an order selector, forklift operator for this food distribution company. That's I would say my first initial love of the supply chain industry came from just a summertime job. But it really came from a couple of places. Number one, my mom, she was working for a local driver staffing company here in Phoenix, Arizona. I was younger and getting ready to go to college, and watching her go through her career and really like advancing and doing a lot of great things within that company was amazing and exciting to see. And it was just disappointing to see her owner continue to disappoint her and do things like reduce her commissions when she actually deserved to probably make more money, and doing things that were not necessarily, I think, as ethical as what I would have done in business. And So really, at 19 years old, I threw away the college future and started the company called Contracted Driver Services as a way to compete against really, I would say, an owner who just has different interests in mind, right? My focus is always in empowering people and getting the best out of people, and really giving the most that I can to others too. So kind of I treat my life a little bit differently in the way that I act. And so as a CEO, as an owner, I really take a different approach in the business too. So, really, the initial supply chain industry kind of drew me in. My mom, working for a similar company, taught me that I could do something similar to somebody else, but do it completely differently. And number three, my drive and inspiration, I've always wanted to be a CEO. My dad actually nicknamed me Doc when I was a younger kid. And I think it was because he wanted me to go to medical school or something and become a doctor. And I always was just hustling and making money and trying to make money when I could, and starting little businesses. And so I always was inspired to want to be in business for myself. So at 19, just kind of threw my name in the ring, and haven't looked back since. I've been 22 years now.
That is fantastic. And it's funny. First of all, definitely you have the drive, the gumption, you're motivated, but at the same time, 19, starting something like that. And also you didn't know what you didn't know, because sometimes that could get in the way.
Exactly.
Especially at that age. I mean, you were just, you were all in, no turning back. And again, here we are. And just for our listeners that might not be familiar, could you just share what is F-Staff? Because obviously that is,
Sure.
You've adopted, you've changed, you evolved over the years,
Right.
What is F-Staff today?
So in 2001, we started out as Contracted Driver Services. Actually, it was Clarke's Contracted Driver Services, because I didn't have an attorney, and my attorney was the clerk at the Corporation Commission's office in downtown Phoenix, who encouraged me to make my name more unique by adding a name to it. So our first name was horrible. It still wasn't any better when we shaved off Clarke's and kept it as Contracted Driver Services for so long. But we really operated that business and kept it strong all the way until 2019, where we made a full tech leap into a tech stack adventure future, where we're providing a marketplace for truck drivers to find and select the job opportunities that they're looking for. So what we did is we morphed from an old traditional staffing agency model called Contracted Driver Services, and have made a huge leap forward in providing what's now called PSaaS, or Platform Staffing as a Service. It's a very new coined term in the staffing industry, talking about really kind of what that future landscape looks like for staffing. So we are on the front lines of that, and have been really working over the last decade, focusing on the tech stack and a lot of the things that will allow us to provide that in solution for drivers and for carriers, and for the marketplace in general, just to provide an on-demand gig economy solution for motor carriers that need truck drivers on demand, and for truck drivers that deserve as much work as they want on demand.
And so you took a traditional brick and mortar staffing concept, which is obviously it's in drivers. That's my background. That's one of the things that we have in common. In addition to the stories about our moms, I think we both have that in common as well. But taking what has changed over the years, I would expect you'd say, is that the advancement, the evolution of technology has enabled you to, I don't want to use the word abandon, but certainly morph into a more tech forward way of providing a much better experience for both drivers and for your customers who are needing those drivers. Is that fair?
Fair. And you have to understand, when we started, we were working off of fax machines and, analog telephones, right? So, I mean, just to age how fast technology's changed over the last 22 years, it's been absolutely amazing if you look backwards and see how things have changed. So, we recognized the mobile, changes happening inside the workforce earlier than most. I just felt like the smartphones were going to enable so much more capability for a worker, and we could eliminate, steps like fill out a paper application and replace it with a technology solution. We can, get rid of paper logs and, magnet boards and whiteboards and, Excel spreadsheets. And we can actually manage our business much more professionally using technology instead of this archaic human-driven approach that was filled with errors. And rightfully so, because humans make a lot of mistakes and because, we have a lot to think about. So when we can leverage technology, and that's one thing we believe in the office is people and technology work best together, not in separate form. So it's about leveraging and learning how to leverage technology the right way. Yeah, that's what's worked for us.
Now, you mentioned 2019, right? That's kind of when you made the full pivot, the full, direct approach towards in leveraging technology all in with F-Staff. And then, a year later, we had this global pandemic. Could you, in that transition since then, since the days of 2019, because we knew each other then, we had plenty of conversations then. Can you share some insights into, those early days and, what were the major, milestones that shaped the company's growth, since then?
Yes, it has been a wild ride. I'll tell you that for sure. And definitely COVID actually thrusted us even further into the tech world than what we probably would have done because we were interested in leveraging technology for our candidates and for our clients, but we hadn't really leveraged technology as much for our team internally. And so COVID thrusted things forward in additional ways, allowed us to really wrap our internal people with technology that allowed them to be even faster at what they do, even to the back office. I mean, we just implemented a new macro in the accounting office that's shaving off, I think, a day of work from the back office function. So we continue to just look for technology and look for new advancements into the solution. And over time, we've continued to remain on the front ends of that because we think that way, right? I mean, we actually moved off of paper applications back in 2007, 2008, when the majority of carriers weren't even thinking about that, right? So we just continue to push ourselves into the future and thinking about what are the needs of the workforce, different maybe than what they even envision it to be.
Well, and we're in a highly regulated industry, right? So there's a lot of moving parts. And kind of to your point earlier, you mentioned fax machines, and there's probably plenty of viewers on our show who that's still how they engage, at least when it comes to the previous employment verification process. It's still happening out there, and so we're getting there. I think the industry is getting there. One of the advantages I think that you have coming from that traditional staffing background, you already have an established reputation as being an expert in your field in terms of safe, qualified drivers. And then you already have a good base of customers. And then, as you grow, you're able to scale faster, I think better, leveraging that technology. And I say that as opposed to maybe a Silicon Valley startup who thinks the same way you do in terms of, hey, how do I bring technology into the space? But they probably don't have industry knowledge and awareness. They don't have the business that already exists that they can build on. And so as a result, I think it's really hard to get any traction there.
Absolutely right. And workforce like truck drivers, they can smell authenticity miles away, right? And so our culture at F-Staff is that we are a family of workers who believe truckers drive everything because everything that we need to live our lives is hauled by a professional driver at some point in its life cycle to get to me. And so if I want to continue to live the life that I like to live with the freedoms and the things and the services and the items that I have around me, I have to absolutely love drivers. And we have loved drivers since we started this business. We still love them even more so today. Truckers drive everything. And yes, if you just try to create a technology, in this industry and you don't understand who you're serving and why you're serving them, you will struggle to survive. It's important to understand what you're here to do. And, our business model is here to help carriers put drivers in seats when they don't have them available. And we're here to help drivers find the appropriate jobs that they're looking for. And we want to make sure that the rest of that needs to happen other than getting paid, it's all back office function, and it should be handled by us, and we should make it as seamless and easy as possible for the end user. So in our world, that's what we try to do. We try to reduce the friction and eliminate any bottlenecks or any places where we're in the way. That's not helpful. We want to be helpful, right? And as a service company, I think you have to think like that, right? You want to be helpful. You don't want to be in the way. And so we get out of the way, and we do the right things that we're supposed to, and we let our partners match the way that they're supposed to and the way that they want to.
And until that happens, oftentimes you're hiring drivers, right? They become employees of FStaff. Is that correct?
Absolutely. All of our drivers are W-2 employees of FStaff. They continue to work for our company, and actually more so now than in years past, they want to continue to work for FStaff because they receive the benefits that they want to receive here, and they like the flexible work economy that they're able to have at FStaff. So really the future of work is changing, and I think a lot of the workers that are finding this model exists, they appreciate it, they like it, and they find that they enjoy it more than the traditional model of working for someone, for 40 hours a week, always the same employer, always the same schedule, only given 2 weeks off a year, not being able to actually manage the life that you want to live. So we're really unlocking the freedom that workers want to be able to live the life that they want to live.
Yeah, I used to get that, in my staffing days, I used to get that question. Oh, why would a driver want to work for you, for, a staffing company? I'm like, where do I begin? There are so many benefits to the driver in terms of the flexibility that you talk about. The compensation that they can make is still on par with what they could be getting in some other dedicated, job. And then also the not just the flexibility, but the opportunity to experience a lot of different types of work to really find, and then they can find the fit that makes the most sense for them if they want to go someplace on a permanent basis. But kind of to your point, oftentimes, I'm sure you've got drivers that have worked for you for years and just love that, environment.
One of them called me on my cell phone earlier today. One of my drivers, Dennis Moore, he's been working for us for years, and he and I are friends. And so absolutely, you become friends with your drivers. I think you should. If you care about them enough, you're actually going to build real, true relationships with the drivers. They're not a number. They have a name. They have things that they like to do. And we try to make sure that we really treat each driver like an individual here at FStaff for sure.
I know as a staffing company, since when I was a staffing company, I didn't realize until I got into it how big the industry is. Staffing is huge. It covers every facet, every type of business there is. And so I didn't realize, how important and valuable driver staffing was in this, highly regulated industry. Can you share what have you seen? What maybe some specific benefits that you've observed in the trucking industry as they've adopted, this sort of on-demand model, this concept?
Sure. Yeah, I think first of all, the carriers that we do demonstrations with our product, they have this epiphany. They just don't even know that they could actually do this, right? They don't know that you can order a driver in a system or a portal that we have and have it directed to the highest matched drivers and allowing them to now select that job and then come directly to you. Sometimes we can get the driver placed within minutes. They can even get confirmation that the driver's accepted the order within seconds. And so the speed is really helping the carriers understand the evolution and understand that there's this new way of doing things, right? So and frankly, everyone's seeing on-demand, adoption in every area of their life, right? Like I just, flew recently, and the tickets automatically get added into my wallet, right? And I have it on my phone, and I can now just scan and get directly exactly where I need to go without any friction, right? So the carriers have really loved, again, the flexibility of being able to hire seasonal drivers as you need to. You can flex up and flex down as fast as you want. But different than the staffing model, you actually have a little bit more decision as to the workers that you want to select. Okay, so in the traditional staffing model, a carrier would make a phone call to their traditional agency, right? And it would be like, the Salt Lake City branch or whatnot, right? And then that branch would take in the order. They would write down the details. And of course they get, flatbed 6 a.m. Tuesday or something like that. Right. And they don't really get any large amount of detail for the driver. And so anyway, there's this new way of being able to push orders in a fashion that actually shares the detail and the information that the drivers need to be successful. So carriers don't have to call the agencies back and forth. We don't have issues with cancellations because the orders automatically get requeued. You don't have to order a DQ file, request the information on the driver file because automatically going to come to you. There's just so many things that are just automatically done that are different than the way the traditional staffing approach works. And we're still finding more ways, right? Because we're still actually asking our carriers more information about what works well for them, what doesn't work well for them. I think one of the new features that the carriers love is the ability to review a driver and leave feedback, right? Because they want to make sure that they have that information to hold on to, and they want to be able to share that information with others. So that's a really good feature that our carriers are loving. And really a little bit more on the feature side of what they're enjoying a lot is being able to build a pool of workers that you can send orders directly to. So instead of just an order going to any driver, that might want to select it, carriers have the option of being able to narrow that search down into a pool of drivers that they already have pre-selected through our candidate pool. God, I could go on and on, Jeremy, with features, that the carriers love, but it's definitely amazing to watch their faces, see the speed that they're able to get their needs met. I think that's what I like the most is watching their faces and the joy that they get at just knowing that they can get their needs met so much faster and have trust in that process. And then you can just see the relief that comes off of their shoulders, because when we're in supply chain, we are important people. We have to get the stuff to the place it's supposed to get to as fast as it's supposed to get there, right? Without any delays along the way. So that's a big deal. And I think the carriers are really starting to understand that on-demand approach is where everything should go.
And it's a luxury, especially I'd say in this softening economy. I think it's a luxury to every company has a bottom 5 or 10% of performing drivers, right, on their own staff or their own team, that if there is an opportunity to upgrade and it's fairly simple, as you said, frictionless, if it's simple, it behooves them to not consider that opportunity to upgrade. That's another, I guess, reason or benefit, especially at a time like this. So that's something I recall, in the wonderful years of 2008 and 9, that was something that I certainly recognized as a value opportunity for carriers that doesn't come that often, because there hasn't been too many lulls in the demand for drivers over the last, 15 years, 20 years that I've been in the industry. Now, we do have one more question left. So I do want to, this is our deeper dive question, I think, and in fact, it references a softening economy. The question is, with a softening economy, I'm constantly told not to turn off our advertising for drivers. What are some benefits to keeping an open pipeline when hiring and demand is slower? Is that something you can speak to?
Yeah, I can. At F-Staff, we really try to stay flexible and visible, right? So our brand is important to really stay in front of the drivers, and we want a constant pipeline of candidates coming through. I think today you can be more flexible with your spend than you ever have been before, right? So as long as you have multiple markets that you're needing to recruit or hire drivers in, you can roll spend into other markets pretty simply and pretty quickly these days. So I think it just depends on the carrier type and whether they want to continue to keep a flow of candidates coming in, because you do have an expense that comes along with that after the compliance cost, and screening the candidates. There's more of the cost comes in the hiring and onboarding of the driver than it is really bringing them to the table in the first place. But, the way I think about it is, why not have the water continue to keep running so that when you're thirsty, you actually have somewhere to drink? So for us, we want to keep the driver funnel continuing to flow as strong as possible. It keeps our people sharp here. And then again, we just angle our spend and continue to recruit in the areas that we need to. But employers should absolutely look to be flexible with that and, be watchful of their spend and, how much value it's returning to their company.
Yeah, and I, even like I said a second ago about being able to upgrade or top grade that bottom 5 or 10%. I think that would be another reason that I would add maybe as a response to this question.
1,000% for sure.
But well, before we go, how can our audience learn more about you and FStaff? Where can we direct them?
Pretty simply, you can go to fstaff.com. You can also go on social media. We're pretty active on LinkedIn and Instagram and Facebook, depending on the audiences. But for the corporation, you really kind of just search us on online, fstaff.com, and directs you to depending on what you're looking to do with us. But yeah, and you can always connect with Justin. Obviously, I'm running around conferences like you are, and I love to meet new people. And so if anybody wants to just shoot me an email, it's jclarke@fstaff.com.
And we can find you on LinkedIn as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
of
perfect.
Course.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Justin. Super grateful for our relationship and appreciate your dedication to making this industry a better place.
Thanks, Jeremy.
And thanks for joining me for another episode of Taking the High Road and for spreading the words to your industry peers. We really appreciate it. And remember, you could submit any question or comments, including those which may appear on upcoming deeper dive segments at podcast@driverreach.com. And don't forget to rate and review Taking the High Road, whatever platform you use to listen. Until next time, thank you for taking the high road.